Good morning, kids. We are going to start our fractions unit, and it is unit 1 in your math expressions workbook. It is the volume 1 workbook, and you can see here it says at the top, it says homework and remembering. And when you get your workbooks, you got 2, you need to make sure that you are actually in volume 1, and it tells you right down here, grade 5, volume 1. This is the workbook that we will be using with our lessons. And we are starting in Unit 1, Lesson 1 on page 1. We are going to start with the homework side, and the way that we're going to break our lessons up is that most of the time we'll do the homework on one day, and then the flip side of that would be the remembering page, and we would do that on the next day. And so this lesson, you can see here when we go to the front, is Lesson 1-1, and the first one stands for Unit 1, and lesson, and the second one stands for Lesson 1. So this is Lesson 1-1 homework. We're going to talk about fractions, and this is our fractions unit. It's one of our longer units, but we're going to get to really dig in pretty deep to fractions, and I like to start out fractions with what we call a fraction bar. And you can see this chart here is a fraction bar. Some people call them fraction strips. And this fraction bar goes all the way from 1 whole up to 12ths. I sent copies of these fraction bars home. I sent them in an email to your parents in our weekly newsletter. And I sent one that looks just like this, that is a completed fraction bar. And I also sent one that looks like this, which is a blank fraction bar for you to practice with. If you can print them out, I recommend you do. They're a great way to help you visualize your fractions. If you can't print them out, it's okay, because we have them on here where you can see them in the lesson. It's a great tool for not only giving you a visual picture of fractions, but also helping you to compare different fractions. When looking at this fraction bar, you can see right here that we have 1 whole. If we were to break that 1 whole in half, we would have 2 halves. And you can see that right there. If we were to break it into 3 parts, you would have 3 1/3. So you'd have 3 thirds. 1, 2, 3. If we were to break that same whole up into 4 pieces, you'd have 4 1/4 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If we were to break it up into 5 equal pieces, you'd have 5 1/5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 equal 1/5 pieces. And so on. And you can see it goes down to 6. There's 6 equal pieces. Here there's 8, 9, 10, and then 12. I don't know why on this particular one there's not 7 or 11. But you understand, you can get the picture here of what you're going to see with your fraction bars. And really the idea is to help you visualize, to help you see what a whole looks like. Right here, we at the top, we have our whole and how it compares, okay? If you were to write 1 whole as a fraction, it's 1/1, okay? Here, if you broke it up, you have into 2 pieces, you have 1/2 and 1/2, okay? And then 1/2 and 1/2 are called unit fractions because 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole. And again, that's visualized by seeing that if we take these 2 halves here, 1 and 2, and we trace them outside, the size is equal to 1 whole. You can also walk your way down this fraction bar, and you can see that 1/2 is equal to 1/4 plus 1/4. And it's also equal to 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6, okay, which is 3/6 or 2/4. So 1/2 is equal to 2/4 is also equal to 3/6. And if we can get down here to eighths, you can see that 1/2 is also equal to 4/8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4/8. You can also see that it's equal to 5/10. You can get down here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/10. And you can see on the bottom row it's equal to 6/12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is equal to 6/12. So each of those fractions, 1/2, 2/4, 3/6, 4/8, 5/10, and 6/12, are equal to each other. So when we look at any of these fractions, the denominator of the fraction is the number of equal parts in that bar. So if we took these fractions here, 1/2, we know that 2/2 equal 1/2, but if we have 1/2, the denominator here tells us how many parts this fraction bar is broken up into. And we can see that the denominator is 2, and this fraction bar is broken into 2 parts. If we go down to, for example, fifths, 1/5, we can see that this fraction bar here is broken up into 5 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the denominator is 5. So the denominator tells us how many parts the fraction bar is broken into. We're going to talk about unit fractions, and each of these bars here, each one is a unit fraction. And when you have a unit fraction, it is the number on top, the numerator is a 1. Okay, so as long as the numerator is a 1, that's a unit fraction. And we use unit fractions to build a whole. So we would say 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1/2. We could go down here to sixths, and we could say 1/6, and we'd have to do it 6 times, okay, because this is our unit fraction here, because there's a 1 in the numerator. 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 equals 1/2. So unit fractions have a 1 in the numerator, and the denominator varies. Okay, we can see we have many different denominators here to choose from, and you can choose any of them. And if we had 1/12 unit fractions to create a whole, you'd have to add 1/12 12 times. So it would be 1/12 plus 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 1/12. And when we add fractions, as long as they have the same denominator, these unit fractions, it's going to equal 12 over 12, which is equal to 1/2. So any fraction that's not a unit fraction, meaning that it doesn't have a 1 in the numerator is not at the number 1, any fraction that doesn't have a unit fraction can be built by adding unit fractions. And what I mean by that is, for example, if we took the number 3/5, I can build 3/5 by adding unit fractions. 3/5 is just equal to 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 equals 3/5. And all I do is add the numerators straight across the top. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is equal to 3, and my denominator stays the same. The denominator of the fraction tells the number of unit fractions in the whole. For example, if we take the number 3/5 that we were working with a minute ago, we know that the whole is made up of 5 unit fractions. Specifically, the whole for this would be 5/5, or the unit fractions would be 1/5. And we know this because the denominator is 5. So that one whole is broken up into 5 equal parts. The numerator of a fraction tells the number of unit fractions in the fraction. So if we take that same fraction, 3/5, we now know the denominator is 5, and it's that fraction, that one whole, is broken up into 5 equal parts. But the numerator, the top number there, tells us the number of unit fractions that are in that. And all that means is there are 3/5. There's 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 to equal those 3/5. So there's 3 unit fractions in that 3/5. Now, after talking about unit fractions, okay, talking about our fraction bars and what they look like, we're going to go ahead and look at our homework for today. And we have a homework page here, and I'm going to scoot it on over just a little bit. And this is the 1-1 homework. And it says, use the fraction bar below for exercises 1 through 4. So 1 through 4, we are using numbers 1 through 4. We're using this fraction bar right here to answer the questions. Number 1 says, label the first part of this fraction bar with the correct unit fraction. Remember, a unit fraction has a numerator of 1 and a denominator that tells how many pieces or parts that fraction bar is broken into. So the first thing that we can do is we're going to write a 1 because it's a unit fraction. So it's going to be 1 over, and then we have to figure out the denominator, and that's how many pieces that fraction bar is broken up into, and we just need to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And so 1/7 is the first part of this fraction bar. And if we know that this first part of the fraction bar is 1/7, then we know every single one of these pieces of the fraction bar are 1/7 as well. Number 2 says, circle the first 4 parts of the bar. What fraction of the whole does the circled portion represent? So circle the first 4 parts of the bar. I'm going to use red here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's 4 parts that are circled. And it asks us what fraction of that whole does the circled portion represent? Well, we know that there are 7 equal pieces, and we know that we circled 4 of them, so it becomes 4/7. Remember, 7 is the total number, and 4 is how many we circled. So 4/7 is your answer. Now, when we look at number 3, it says write your fraction from exercise 2 as a sum of unit fractions. Well, we know that a unit fraction always has 1 in the numerator. And we know that the denominator here is 7 because that fraction bar is broken up into 7 equal pieces. So all we need to do is we know that the unit fraction is 1/7, and we know that we can go back and count. We know that we circled 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we need 4 unit fractions to add together. So we have 1/7 plus 1/7 plus 1/7 plus 1/7. And that is equal to 4/7. And when it says write it as a sum of unit fractions, sum is just adding them together. 1/7 plus 1/7 plus 1/7 plus 1/7. I'm going to have you complete number 4 on your own. And what number 4 says is represent the whole as a sum of unit fractions. Well, you know that it's broken up into 7 equal pieces, so you're not just doing 4 of them like you were here with this unit fraction. You're going to have to do the whole, which would be 7 of them. So go ahead and figure out that sum to create a whole. Number 5 says, solve the problem below by circling parts of the fraction bar. Write the appropriate equation below the bar. And I'm going to have you complete this one on your own. It says, Brett is building a fence around his yard. He has worked on it for 2 weeks so far. He finished 2/8 the first week and 3/8 the second week. What fraction of the entire fence has he built? Well, you know you're going to use these fractions to tell you how many unit fractions you are. And when you look at 2/8, you know that's 1/8 plus 1/8. And then when you look at 3/8, it's 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. So you're going to have to figure out the sum of unit fractions. So it's going to be written just like we wrote this sum of unit fractions up here, and how you wrote number 4 when you did number 4 on your own. That's how you write the sum of unit fractions. Don't forget to circle the parts either, and here is where you're circling the parts, right below on that fraction bar. And on your last one, number 6, it says Nina thinks that because 4 is less than 6, it must also be true that 1/4 is less than 1/6. And you need to explain to Nina why this is incorrect. Well, remember, when you're comparing fractions, a great tool to use is this fraction bar chart. And we're comparing 1/4 in this and 1/6. Okay, and when you look at 1/4, if you highlight or circle or trace 1/4, and then you go down and you do the same for 1/6, you can physically or visually see that 1/6 is smaller than 1/4. And you need to be able to tell me why 1/6 is less than 1/4. And when you're justifying your answer, I should hear things like, when a whole is broken up into 6 pieces, those pieces are smaller than when a whole is broken up into 4 pieces. Okay, you can think of it as a pizza, and you have 2 pizzas, and one is cut into 4 slices and one is cut into 6 slices. Which one is going to have the bigger slices? Well, the one that's cut into 4 slices is going to have larger slices because there's less pieces that it's cut into. And I'm going to have you go ahead and complete number 6 on your own, and I'm interested to hear your explanations. Please make sure that you save or you attach and turn in your work for me, and have a good day.